Are you ready to get provoked? You're listening to Can I Live, a show created to excite, ignite, and expose. Let's tune in with your host, R.W. Jones.
Here in Chicago, but this is something we can build nationally.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
I mean, the thought now, interestingly enough, here we have now, normally we're always talking, if not race, it's always good or bad, and
Mhm.
sometimes it plays out in black and white. But in this case, you had actually Caucasian people helping you
Support it.
do it and
Yep.
supporting you. And then the black man come in with his
Well,
ridiculous.
that's not a new model. You
I
know,
know.
we know about slavery, so there was always the
Uncle
ones that
Tom,
worked in the house
Cool.
and the weren't the ones in the field. So this is the same. This is just a
This is the
replay.
one that was gonna go tell Master, listen, they're gonna run away tonight.
Exactly. So
They
that's
running away, Master. They go, come get him. I
yeah.
would have
So
I would have punched him dead in his face.
well,
I mean,
trust me, I could tell you stories.
that's so
Um,
sickening. So herein lies, you guys, in podcast land. This season, it's not about black and white, really. It's really just about doing the right thing because it's right to do. And it doesn't matter what color you are, it's just right to do. Now, that does not mean that when that opposition comes, that it might not look like the face of a white person or the face of another black person. Just know that the opposition is coming. And it's just sickening to know maybe he thought he was getting some coon points. I'm not sure. Did he even ask the
he
mayor if
was
that's
a
what he wanted?
you know Chicago politics are unique.
Okay.
I've worked in LA, I've worked in DC, in the Thunderdome, as I call it. I've worked in Chicago. Chicago politics are very unique and very unique history. So blacks here, I know you're in DC,
Hmm.
but blacks in Chicago have power, like real power. Um,
Really?
I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. No, blacks in Pittsburgh, they still on the plantation.
Mm.
And we can get that at some other time. But here, the mayor's black. The head of the school board is black.
Okay.
The head of the police department is black. The head of the fire department is black. The president of the state senate, black.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
In Chicago, black people are free.
Hmm.
Like I ain't never been pulled over because of my Beamer in Chicago.
Hmm.
In Pittsburgh, every time I come home, I get pulled over.
Hmm.
Here black people are free and boisterous and making decisions in impactful positions.
And used to having that power and utilizing that power for
Hey,
good.
listen, I'll give you a quick argument. I tell people this all the time. I'll argue with anybody that Chicago is the black capital of America.
Mm.
So let me explain to you. How many black presidents we ever had?
How many black who?
Presidents.
One. He was
Where are you from?
Chicago.
Chicago. How many black U.S. senators have we ever had?
Um,
Nobody knows the
I
answer to
don't
that question. Right. But we done had four from
know.
here.
Really?
Four. How many black congressmen, federal? The president of the Congress is black here in Illinois. President Senate, black. Well, no, President Congress is not black now, but the President Senate was black. And Chicago, oh, and let me just throw out a couple more. Where is the Nation of Islam?
I'm gonna say Chicago for 100.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Louis Farrakhan. Where's Operation Push? Jesse Jackson.
Hmm.
Chicago.
Okay.
Where's Ebony? Where's Jet? Where's Oprah? Where's Michael Jordan?
Really?
Come on. Come on. This is the black
Where is
capital.
Raquel Jones? We need to be out there, it looks like.
Right. This is the black capital of America.
Hmm.
And I argue now, what's my man down in Atlanta? Madeir. I can't hear that say.
Tyler Perry.
Tyler, right. Atlanta trying to make a push for the title. But I'm telling you right now, today, this is the black capital of America. And a black man here can drive a Rolls Royce and never get pulled over by the cop. You know, and I could tell you 100 stories, but what we did in the mid 90s can be replicated all over this country. It was 1990.
Let me ask you this. Has a housing authority or anybody come to you and say, hey, can you show us what you did down in Chicago? We would like to do that here.
So I share with you that Kevin Bacon, the actor, his sister was an assistant secretary of HUD when we did this. And she flew me to Boston, and I gave the playbook as an athlete, we call it a playbook. I gave the playbook to 50 housing authorities across the nation. Wow. And so we put the word out, but again, the political will has to be in line. From the mayor's office to the housing authority to HUD, it's got to be in line. We can do that again. I'm prayerful that the results of the November 3rd election will align the stars again. I'm more than willing to go across this country and share with the largest housing authorities, the Coalition of Large Housing Authority, CLAFA, NOAA, NARO, all those trade organizations that are involved in affordable housing. I'm more than willing to go back out there and do it again.
Really?
And help them build the infrastructure to get these Section 3 resident-owned businesses off the ground, because they have the ability to do it.
They do. Now, let me ask you this. With CLAFA, NOAA, NARO, NELROD, all of them, in the worst case scenario, I mean, you're probably going to have to shut your doors and lock yourselves in the house should Trump win again. It might be all hell and chaos out there. In the event that the Democrats don't take the seats, don't take the White House, don't take, the Senate, could this still be done? Even if a housing authority and a mayor was willing, you can still do it in those environments where there's political will.
It regulatory, yes. Are the regs and the laws in place to get it done? Yes. Would Ben Carson, Dr. Ben Carson, Secretary of HUD, would he be willing to push the agenda? I don't know. I haven't had that conversation with him, but he would be a key player in that conversation.
I know that they were looking to do, he was on the Section 3 beaten trail initially in the beginning of his campaign. I'm not sure if, as he, matriculated the idea through, I believe the ghost of Christmas past, the wicked ones, came out and started just to wreak havoc, and he just kind of left it alone. But I mean, that's one way to perceive it. But I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, because I worked in the Secretary of HUD's office. He's got a lot on his plate, and he's a medical doctor. Yeah,
totally. And I don't say this out of disrespect. It's just a fact. He was totally unqualified for that job.
Yeah, right? I feel like he was the only black one on the team.
Yeah, HUD is kind of like, we need a black person to run.
Yeah, do the black people over there.
Put the black people over there.
Not Health and Human Services, but HUD. Yeah,
because they see it as, they see it as public housing, Section 8, and Indian reservation. But it's a lot more than that. It's FHAs. There's so much that comes with that job, and he was not qualified for that job. If I needed my brain to be operated on, I call Ben Carson. Yeah. If I need to deal with the projects, he's not the first person I call. So
So let me see. I mean, we almost like more than halfway in. If we wanted to do this again, so here we are, Can I Live? We have the resident owned business incubator. We're here in DC. We're hoping to get into Maryland, Virginia. We work through the WIOA pipeline, so workforce development, and they pay for the training for the individuals to become, because we're not a housing authority, so we didn't have that kind of funding. So we had to work through the instruments that would allow for the funding or for the training to take place. So we have the training incubator in place, 100% virtual. Definitely looking to roll it out in different parts of the United States. Um, so we're teaching them how it's a 15-week, 20 hours a week, 300-hour course. They graduate with the business license, website, capability statements, all that good stuff. Stuff that makes them just at least pass the eye gate, look good on paper. Now we just had in our meeting, we talked about partnering them with an entity, but not for the purposes of contracting, more so for the purposes of performance, giving them performance opportunities so that they can show worthy to perform a contract. We'll look into that a little bit more, but I'll say this for the record: HUD is not our friend. I think they really hate us, and so they have done a lot of underhanded, scrupulous, just devil stuff, and so they will never support us. Um, and so, how could we, as a national public housing tenants association, where most of those that are on our advisory board, in our board, or those that we represent are public housing, which are the first preference or the first benefactors to Section 3, how and where would we like start? I know we talked about maybe it's that group of professionals. You guys have the long-standing relationship. You guys have the network capital, the institutional knowledge. You guys know the players. You guys are not hungry for money because your money is good because you served for so many years in public and or private sector. How do we then close these gaps? I know we're doing our Section 3 trade show. So what we thought is, okay, let's have this trade show, this virtual conference, and we're going to have exhibit booths, and we wanted to bring different levels. So of course, the recipients that are responsible for contracting, but we want to have it where in these booths, they can have one-on-one meetings with the subs, or the subs can have one-on-one meetings with the ROBs. We just really need your network to really
Right.
help us create that environment again. Particularly technology, we believe, sets a different stage and a tone that we
Right.
can do stuff online that we couldn't necessarily do 20, 30 years ago.
Right. So let me say this about that. That's a Ronald Reagan quote. Um, so I'm now speaking to you as an economist. I'm a trained economist.
Okay.
Look at every housing authority's budget.
Okay.
What is their annual budget? If you look, and that's public information, so you should be able to get that pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
And then what portion of that budget is outsourced to contractors?
Mm-hmm.
And then work down from that list. So whatever it is, if it's reconstruction, redevelopment, rehabilitation, landscaping, line, whatever it is, go from top to bottom, the biggest number to the lowest number. And then look at who has those contracts. What agencies, what companies? In most instances, they will not be minority.
No.
Okay. And then you say to them, you come back with a strategy to carve out some portion of that money to resident-owned businesses. And you say to those companies, if you want to stay in the game, you need to partner with a resident. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
So in the Chicago Housing Authority's case, it was 600 million. We carved out 100 million.
Mm.
And then we went to the companies who were getting that money and said, if you want to stay in the game, you need to partner up with some residents.
But you guys were the ones given a contract, so you guys had the
Pardon me?
authority. I say you guys were
Yes,
the ones
correct.
given the contract.
Correct.
You had the authority
Correct.
to say that.
So that's why I say start with your association of Black mayors. Start there, and I would say Black and Latino,
Mm-hmm.
because they pretty much roll with us on this. And then look at the housing authority under that Black or Latino mayor. Is that a Black or Latino run authority? And then go to the contracts and see how much money they're spending. And then can we carve out a piece of that?
Mm-hmm.
And
Black don't always mean that it's going to work out. I mean, we know that, but at least
right.
you can have a premise.
Well, it starts
Start.
there, that of someone you think might be on board, because I've had a lot of Black opposition. You know, they always find a way to find some. They always find a Clarence Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're real good at that. But I mean, it gives you a framework, and you know, Lord willing, in a week, things will change dramatically.
Mm.
And once it changed, you know, then we can get real busy.
Mm-hmm.
But if we have this data, Black mayors, Black housing authorities, Black school board leaders, you know, police chiefs, fire chiefs, you know, get that framework in place. Know where we have strength, and focus our energy on places where we know we have strength.
Where we have.
Yeah, I can guarantee you this: Chicago, top of the list. We got crazy strength here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll put Chicago on the top. I mean, are you familiar with J.R. Fleming?
Sounds familiar.
He's from Cabrini Greens. He does a lot of advocacy around it.
Oh, yeah, no, I know who he is. Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
Okay, yeah. So let me ask you this, because here's what is another interesting little component. And I don't know the strategy, but I curse it to the pits of hell. You know, with this process that you guys have done, HUD has a way to take your own stuff and use it against you. For us, we're a resident organization. So we gave residents, and our board, we're a resident advisory board, a resident tenant council. So when we started to give contracts to the people on our board, they said that we were operating in a conflict of interest. And we're like, really? It's a resident organization. And basically, I wrote the grant. And so as if I couldn't benefit from the grant because I wrote the grant and I'm on the board, but I'm like, but I wrote grants for housing authorities. I wrote my own salary for housing authorities, but they still got us on this conflict of interest thing. And so they have a thing where they can use what, you know, and so here's my issue. Because I know if I was a freaking Catholic charity, they would have never treated me like that. And the same thing with a lot of these businesses that came through Chicago Housing Authority. There's 141 businesses. I'm not sure how many of them made it out unscathed alive, but I do know I have talked to a few. And of the few, some of them literally are caught in these legal battles where HUD is trying to say that this thing that they did with you guys was like improper, and they were serving as a bypass, but yet they did not hold the white companies accountable. What strategy would you suggest, knowing the regulations, knowing the rules, and knowing their tactics as this big ass bully that, excuse me, I'm sorry, Lord, forgive me. Well, he knows I'm working on my cursing. But what strategy would you say when there's a Goliath that would use these tactics to, like, if he's so big that he could smash you out one by one? It's like killing little ants. I could kill these ants one by one, one by one. Where is our power? Like you said, there's power in numbers. We have, if we come together, there has strength. I am just concerned that something so benevolent, so to me, I would say righteous and just to these small businesses, that they would then handpick a couple of businesses, the ones that was really winning, and say, you know what, we're gonna hold you and indict you on all these counts and charges for being a bypass, when And then they can make the law be, that's the tricky part about law. You really can spin it any way you want to.
Right.
But what and how do we even come to bat for a business like that, or advocate for a business like that, advocate for ourselves or collectively, because we've all been injured. I got another person on the podcast who actually was jailed. He went to jail. And
so let me respond to that. You started by saying HUD. You viewed HUD as the adversary.
I did.
Yeah, it's not HUD. I can tell you, as a former executive who worked in Washington, D.C. for HUD, that's too small for their attention in Washington. It's the housing authority doing this. So your local housing authority is taking HUD regulations or policies and attacking resident-owned businesses. And then they tell HUD, oh, we just saw Rachel doing this, and we want to go after her. And HUD is going to say, okay, fine, because they got 5,600 housing authorities to deal with. They're not going to be that petty in DC. This is coming from your local, whatever's going on that you're dealing with is coming from your local housing authority, and they ask HUD for support in going after resident-owned business.
So when the documentation comes from HUD and HUD is trying to default you and tell you that you owe them money,
it's because the housing authority told them that. They don't have the staff to even be involved at that level. I can tell you, but I know because I work there. We don't have the staff to go after every resident-owned business and every housing authority in America. If HUD sends you a letter, it's because the housing authority is behind it. You follow me?
I always thought it was the other way around.
No, HUD don't care. Trust me, their budget, it's $1 trillion. They got too much to deal with to be dealing on that local level. So when your resident-owned business gets a letter from the DC Housing Authority or the Chicago or LA or New York, it's because the housing authority is behind it, not HUD.
So then how do you then fight that?
So again, the mayor, who's the mayor? Who's the head of the housing authority? It's all politics.
It's politics. Yeah.
Pardon me?
I said, well, in our case, I mean, I would agree because the housing authority here is not our friend either. And They did put out a letter that said, like, we don't ban her, that we don't want them even nowhere near, residents or anything without any reason. And HUD allowed them to just do it without any justification.
Okay, so let me tell you two things about that. A, they can't ban you from anywhere because you live in America. You're free now. So they can't ban you.
Right.
They may not like you talking to residents, but they can't ban you. Secondly, all politics are local. Just remember that. All politics are local. So what works in DC don't work in Chicago. What works in LA don't work in New Orleans. All politics are local. So get your local people on board. Get your state rep. Y'all got a problem in DC because y'all ain't represented on the federal level.
Right.
You're not a state, so you don't have a congressman or a woman or state senator, a U.S. senator. So y'all got your local.
They have them, but they don't have a vote. Eleanor Holmes.
Right, exactly. They have no vote. They have no vote. But your mayor, your state rep, y'all don't even have a state rep, do you? You have a state rep, state senator?
No, we have.
Because you're not in the state.
She's our congressional representative, I think, on the representative side, Representative Eleanor Holmes.
Yeah, I know Eleanor.
Yeah.
But you guys are not. So your mayor and your city council and the president of the school board president, they got more power in DC than any other city in the country because they don't have a state rep, state senator, they don't have a U.S. senator. So all politics are local.
That was interesting. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. That right there that you just said, that you just lit a little light bulb in my head.
Right.
Like, you know what? You are right. You just see the emblem and you think HUD and you think big old
Right.
thing, and here they are, and like you said, $1 trillion budget. They're humongous. They're not even knowing and really thinking
No.
anything about you, but
And
the
I
local
can tell you,
politics
watch
plays
this,
at this thing.
Rachel, I can tell you, when a question about DC public housing gets to HUD, and most of the time it won't, because DC Housing Authority is gonna do everything they can to make sure HUD don't even know what's going on. But I remember we had an incident in Southwest. And when it gets to HUD, we sitting there like, okay, well, we don't have the staff to address a local issue. We just simply don't. We took over the Chicago Housing Authority. That was the first federal takeover of a housing authority in American history.
Wow.
Now, we looked at taking over Pittsburgh and Allegheny County and Western Pennsylvania. We looked at a couple other places, but we don't have the bandwidth to do that. So we HUD end up listening to the housing authority and the mayor in your locale. And 9 out of 10 times, we're going to do what they ask us to do because they sitting inside a Democratic or a Republican administration. And, you know, it's the game. It's the machine. HUD ain't got that much bandwidth to be personal about public housing in DC. They just don't. I can tell you that point blank.
I believe you. I mean, you worked there. I mean, you were a HUD official. So, I mean, why would not? But what you're saying is true, because now I'm recollecting the things that did play out, and it did
play it right.
A local. It was one of the commissioners were bribing us for some monies that we denied, and then just like that, we were, boom, got the letter. So, but you know, you're right, and so that helps us with, you know, just strategy overall. But I just know at the end of the day, we're not the only ones just injured out here. Like, this is, to me, there's a practice, or like I was just talking
nationwide,
there's this patterns of practice that goes on that this is what, when they say systemic change or systemic institutionalized, these are the things that happen that, you know, really shouldn't.
So when Henry Cisneros was Secretary of HUD and Joe Schuldiner was the Assistant Secretary of Public and Indian Housing, we had a Latino man and a Jew boy from New York who I love to death, Joe Schuldiner, and they were passionate about systemic change. And we pushed the envelope as far as we could under Bill Clinton. But then you run out of time. Once Clinton's 8 years was up, we had to flip it back to Bush, and now we got 45, I won't even say his name, and Ben Carson, who's clueless, you know, and so it's a war of attrition. How much can you get done? When the window opportunity opens, how much can you get done? So let's pray that on November 3rd, we get another window of opportunity. And if we do, then there's two things I want you to do. Is not focus on HUD, because we can explain how the money flows. I know, I can tell you exactly how every housing authority gets its money. I can tell you how every school board gets its money. It's more local than federal. Lord willing, we'll have somebody at the federal level who is a change agent and help us do this. But it's more about the mayors, the heads of the school boards, the housing authorities, more about them than it is about HUD. Because the people at Washington, they gonna sign anything the mayor send them. Also, I don't even know if you know this, but every 10 years, it's right after the census, every mayor, home rule municipality has to send a budget of its redevelopment plans and everything it wants coming out of the federal government. They have to send that right after the census. Whatever they say in this quote unquote study and plan, the federal government's gonna send it to them. That's basically our job in Washington, is send them what you ask for. Chicago got 500,000 students in Chicago public schools, and they need to build 30 schools, and they need, I'm making these numbers up, they need $300 million, blah, blah, blah. Send it to them. So the people in Washington are basically doing what the local politicians asked them to do as a result of the census. But here's something I would like you to do. This is a personal request. Mission possible. Not mission impossible. Mission possible. Let's go on the.
I like that. I'll change it.
Okay, I like it because it's possible. We can do it.
I did think about that. I was like, I don't want to be like redacting myself, but because of you and this podcast today.
Or you could just write a line through.
Yeah.
You know, make it mission possible.
It's possible.
Because we can do this. And me, my team, my family, my folks. I mean, when you meet them, I'm gonna have them come on one at a time. They are as impassioned about this as I am. You're gonna love them. These are remarkable Black people. Doing remarkable things. And I've already talked to all of them. They're moving around the world and the country right now. But if you talk to each one of them, I think you'll be inspired. You'll be inspired.
And I need some inspiration over here. But now that we have talked to you and we are at the end of our podcast, not only has the Mission Impossible been turned to Mission Possible, because it is possible, not only was it done, but watch we do it again. And watch how this whole, just by transforming, and I do believe this, transforming the impossible, making sure that that's not a barrier. We make it possible and we put our efforts, our skill, our intellect, our capacity, our faith, our work. You put that stuff towards positivity. I believe positivity will happen. Or God's will happen. You know what I'm saying? Like it will happen. You bring some great people, all of us together that embody this cause of righteousness and justice. You can only produce that thing which you embody. So thank you so much, Mr. Carter, for joining the podcast. Thank you guys. If you guys have questions, this will probably be the time to ask. You can raise your hands. If not, we look forward to maybe one of your team members can come on next time, because now we're talking Mission Possible. And so now it's all about how will this work? What do we need to do to make it work? We're working on our side to put some stuff together. And so, we're putting the clearing call out to everybody out there. If you have some success and some best practices that you have used in Section 3, please let us know so we can go, just grow this ecosystem, grow this economy, make the world a better place. Because, we have one life to live and we should do the best that we can while we have it.
Give your husband my regards. We've never met.
Amen. I will do so. He in there snoring right now. I can hear him. He's gonna be mad because he does though. He's the one that puts the podcast and stuff out. But yeah, he's in there. But he works hard. But I will let him know that you said hello, and I will continue our calls and our conversation offline. But tune in next week to Mission Possible, where we're telling you the things that it takes to make and direct millions of dollars to resident-owned business. I love the way that sounds. It sounds very, very doable. It sounds very aligned with my faith. So thank you, Mr. Carter, for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You too. You guys have a good night. I'll join you next week. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page and like us on Facebook, Can I Live Podcast. You guys have a great night.